Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's been another week, and it's time for another review podcast. This week, it's the movie that people are saying might be the first bomb of the year. Hard to tell. The theater was moderately packed when I saw it, but then again, one theater from one area at a particular time does not make a success. And of course, I'm talking about Jack the Giant Slayer, part of this still rather inexplicable trend of making new live action, relatively expensive fairy tale movies. I'm still perplexed where this came from, because we've had a series of them. I just reviewed just this last summer. We had Snow White and the Huntsman. You had that Red Riding Hood one with what's this? Gary Oldman. You're seeing these come out, and I'm confused where it's coming from, because there's no big movie that exploded. None of them have been. I don't think they've failed. This isn't for when they're talking about failing, but none of them have been a monster hit to go. Oh, every studio go, yeah, we need to make those. Kind of like when, there was a spat of fantasy films that started coming out after The Lord of the Rings, but The Lord of the Rings was the forerunner for it. That's where we saw. Yeah, The Hobbit came out this year, but this trend kind of started before then. And The Hobbit's still more of a traditional Tolkien fantasy. Literally, it is a Tolkien fantasy because he wrote the damn thing. But you get what I mean by that. It's a sword and sorcery fantasy rather than a take on Grimm's fairy tales. This one's probably, though, not as faithful to the original Grimm tale as Snow White and the Huntsman. I think so. Like I said, I've said this in previous reviews on dealing with these movies. I haven't read the original Grimm's fairy tales, neither in its German or a direct English translation. Although a couple of years ago, I knew enough German I could probably read some of the basics. Yes, I was one of those guys that took German in high school because I love that language, because no matter what you say, it sounds like you're cursing at somebody. But I kind of forgot most of it now. Misuse gets it. Anyway, as to this particular movie, people are saying this is the first possible failure of the year, and there's going to be movies that fail. I don't know what it's going to be thus far, but if it is the first bomb of the year, I went out and was like, when John Carter failed, and I was like, movies not deserving of this. Go out, go see it, help it out. Dread, another one. I heard it was bombing. I go out and it's bombing, but this is such a good movie. You should go see it definitely. And lo and behold, it turned out to be a hit on DVD. So hopefully that's enough of a cue for the studios to go, maybe we're onto something. With this one, though, if it bombs, I'm not going to be like Battleship, where I'm yay! But I'm going to be like, that bombed. Okay. It's not a bad movie. It's a very movie. So I can't cheer its downfall, because it's not bad enough for me to want it to fail, but it's not good enough for me to go, it needs to be saved either. It's a very movie. It's fine if you go into it with the right mood or ideal, which could be said of many things. But overall, it's a very, that happened. Would I recommend it? If you're gonna go to the movies anyway this week, maybe, but I didn't see Snitch. Maybe that was better. I didn't see that Dark Skies movie. That might be better. Argo is still in theater. If you haven't seen Argo, it just won Best Picture. Really, that's the movie you should see this week if you haven't already seen it. Or you can just go out and buy the DVD. Yeah, I don't get that part. If two people are going to go to the movies, tell you what, for approximately the same amount, just go buy the DVD or the Blu-ray. It's rare for that to happen nowadays, but Argo's pulling it off. I'm impressed, and I like that movie. But yeah, that should tell you something right there. It's a hard one to nail down, so I guess we'll have to get into the a bit of the gritty details here. But the first thing I gotta go is, what is up with... Alright, first, Jack is played by Nicholas Hoult, who was, of course, the zombie in Warm Bodies. He's also kind of now one of those guys that are, I think, joined at the hip with a particular director. Bryan Singer cast him as Hank McCoy in X-Men First Class. Well, I guess not. Maybe, I don't know if Bryan Singer did, but yeah, whoever cast him in X-Men First Class, he seemed to have caught the eye of Bryan Singer. And so he brought him onto this little project, and it looks like he's keeping him on for Days of Future Past, which I'll get into that in a second. And all I gotta say is, it is his contract now that he has to wear a hoodie. Seriously, he wore the hoodie as a zombie in Warm Bodies, and it's like, okay, you don't question it because it takes place like now. You'd expect someone his age walking around somewhere he'd be wearing a hoodie. It's kind of a little hipsterish of him, I think. It's like very casual hipster wear, it seems, nowadays, with bright red hoodie. Nah, not even. It's like, that's what hipsters wear when they're not trying, and they can just... But other people do, too. I just keep on thinking that because I think of that zombie as being a hipster zombie with his little records, preferences, whatever. But in this movie, he's wearing like a medieval hoodie. If you took his red hoodie from Warm Bodies and just threw brown paint on the damn thing, that's what he's wearing in this movie. He even he starts off, he's wearing the hood up, and it looked... I know that people had hoods back in medieval times, yes, but not like that. At least I don't think so. And even if you did, it distracted the hell out of me. I'm like, he's wearing a fucking hoodie. What is this movie trying to do? It got me confused because, one, it's trying to, you're seeing this set and you're going, okay, is this one of those movies where it's basically everything modern, but we're just doing it in medieval times? Like, it's that, first off, that never works. It's horrible to do. And that's another thing. This movie doesn't seem to know if it's set in the past or in a fictional fantasy version of the past. I'll get into that in a second. Its movie does not know what it is. That's a big problem with this film. It's a directionless movie. Well, not directionless, but it doesn't know what it wants to do with itself. It's also kind of not sure what the main antagonist of the film is. It feels like this is a movie and its sequel shoved into one film. But you got him, it goes, of course, with the classic tale for the most part, He gets some beans when he goes to sell a horse. At least they give up a good excuse. Like, the monk he gets the beans from is apparently stole them from what's going to be, do you think, the main antagonist? Basically, that guy's motivations I'm gonna have to address too in a second, but let's go over the basic details. He has this, thing. All right. It starts off with telling the legend, the pre-legend apparently, that ancient times a bunch of monks created these beans so they could reach heaven, except when they crawled up the first test vine, they didn't get to heaven. They got to a land full of giants. The giants invaded, and they wound up killing a giant. And they figured out, I don't know how they figured this part out, but if you melt down a giant's heart into a crown, you become the king of the giants. Okay, I'll buy it. Fine, it's a fantasy film. And that was like 1,000 years ago, and it's passed to legend. Except this one guy wants to basically take over the kingdom, even though he's betrothed to the princess and has been promised to rule the kingdom. he wants to steal the ring. He steals the crown and the beans, but a monk steals the beans from him. And as the monk's trying to escape the city, he barters with the. He basically tries to pull a quick switch with Jack there. He does the thing where it's like, these are holy relic beans. If you take them to the abbey, and I hint because they'll give you the money there, because I'm going to buy your horse. In reality, it's a ploy, not to get a cheap horse, but to get the beans out of the city, because someone's going to be looking for this random guy. So lo and behold, he takes, so at least they didn't have him get the whole thing. These are magic beans. You should totally buy the horse. At least with the character, they could have done dumber with the character and had stuck closer to the original tale. Now, maybe if the character was younger, like if the character was like an 8-year-old boy, it could buy. But I think if they tried to do that with an 18-year-old, even though maybe 18-year-olds back in medieval times weren't that smart, you wouldn't buy it. You'd be like, what? Come on. So they do that, and it's at least smart. You can kind of see, okay, how, okay, he's taking these things to the abbey, and the abbey will pay him. Except when he takes it home, he says, well, tomorrow I'll go to the abbey and get my money. And the uncle, of course, that he's living with, calls him an idiot. Obviously, you got swindled. You're going to go to that abbey, and they're going to be like, I don't know any brother like that. Those are beans. And of course, earlier he also ran into the princess and defended her honor without him knowing it. And she, out of everyone, randomly shows up as his house as she's running away. Long story short, beans get wet. She gets taken up on the stalk, and Jack joins a group of knights to go up and rescue it. And it kind of flows from there. Except you have, again, this one guy, I think Roderick, played by Stanley Tucci. He's, of course, the instigator. He goes with them, but his goal is he's gonna goes up there, uses the crown to take control of all of the giants, because if you wear the crown, you're the king of the giants. And you're kind of still going, why? You're like the second most powerful person in the kingdom. You're set to marry the princess. He doesn't love the princess. He kind of, they don't have that whole thing where he is infatuated with the princess and he wants her to love him. No, he doesn't not really care at all. He just wants the power. It's a political marriage. He's fine with that. He doesn't want her to want him. So there's none of that BS. And he's not even that offended when she goes, but I don't love him. He's just like, whatever. I don't care. She's still going to go through with it. It's not like the king is going, well, if you really don't love him, then no, you don't have to marry him. So there's no motivation really for this guy to want to be, get these giants. I get they try to pull this thing where his ultimate plan is he's going to bring the giants so he can rule over an even bigger kingdom. So he's going to bring the giants down, make an army, and take over the rest of the kingdoms. Like, why don't you just wait until you're the king to pull this thing off? Like, why are you doing all this stuff before you're king? Breaking into the crypts, getting these beans, all this other stuff. Why don't you just have that as your B plan? And then once the marriage is done, and the king's dead, maybe you can knock him off yourself, maybe you just let him die of old age, then you do that. Because if you wait till then you're legit. You don't have to do all this stuff behind people's backs. Or you could just, invade with regular armies, and that's your B plan. So, you don't get his motivation. And then, here's the thing. He doesn't stay the villain. He gets, spoiler alert, he gets killed about halfway through this movie. Yeah, eventually he starts to assert his authority as the king. He's preparing his invasion, and Ewan McGregor there stays behind when the princess and Jack go down there, and he kind of lunges and attacks Roderick, and they fall into this little crevice so the Giants can't get involved. And they have a nice little action scene there, and he kills them. Of course, he has like an action scene one-liner, and it's, of course, the Giants come through and they find his king, and one of the Giants declares himself the king of the Giants. Okay, so apparently we have a new antagonist. Okay. So that Roderick thing really didn't do much for us. Again, like I pointed out, they could have made the motivations a little bit more clear. They could have made his motivation that the king was saying, okay, well, if you don't love him, you don't have to marry him. Therefore, he wouldn't get the kingdom. I mean, yes, the Giants invading, taking over pretty much the entirety of Europe. And then apparently he was even going to go take a look and invade and conquer America with his army of giants, but that's a plan. You could have tried it the old-fashioned way, like I said. Keep that as your B plan. Anyway. Oh, well, 1 second before I get into that part. As for the rest of the cast, Ewan McGregor is fine. Ewan McGregor's in a completely different movie. It actually, I guess it is Bryan Singer. It should explain why we have such an amazing cast here. Is that he's known, so a bunch of major stars want to become part of his movie. So you have guys like Ewan McGregor taking like a very backseat role. You got Eddie Marsan in there. Hell, Ian McShane plays the king. It's Ian McShane. Even Warwick Davis is in this movie. Warwick Davis shows up as like one scene in like a cameo as a dwarf actor doing of course the play of Jack and not Jack but the king, the giant thing from earlier. So I'm drinking my Coke that I brought back from the theater. So it's got a really good cast, and they don't do much. Like, they don't do bad performances. These guys, they're good enough that even when they don't try, they do good performances. But I think that's partially because they're not giving anything. Ian McShane is trying to do as much as he can with the part he's given. But it's very in fact, a lot of it feels like it's been cut down. I mean, the movie's about 2 hours long. I have a feeling that a director's cut of this was 2 hours and 30 minutes. Because it feels like there was a lot cut out. Especially like when they're climbing up the beanstalk. I have a feeling that there was a good 10 minutes added on to that originally in that scene. And it is felt, this is taking way too long. We gotta reduce this stuff. So, they did. There's also a bit at the end where it's a bit of a cock tease of a non-battle. Like, the Giants eventually, they find another way down. Well, they don't find another way down. It turns out Roger had brought the rest of his seeds with him, and when he died, they, like, picked up the seeds and were like, okay, we're gonna plant these and have the things grow downwards. Cool. Okay. It works. But then they're having, like, this siege, of course. They're held up in the castle. I think the trailers made it seem like to be more of a battle, which is why I'm a little meh with this. But you don't really get it. Like, as soon as they knock the drawbridge down and get in, that's when, lo and behold, of course the hero gets the crown, because the other king giant, that takeover villain, who sounds a lot like Bill Nye for some reason. Although I don't see Bill Nye on the cast list here. I think, was it General Enton? Who did play that? What was that character's name? Oh, never mind. Yeah, that was Bill Nye. Okay, yeah. General Fallon. That was Bill Nye in there. Okay. That explains why Bill Nye sounded like Bill Nye. Again, they got a lot of good actors in this movie. But, anyway, like, of course, there's a climax with him in the giant throne room. They get it. They eventually kill him by this scene kind of surprised me. Like, Jack is about to be eaten. Of course, he has like one seed left that he didn't give to Roderick. And so he takes the seed and he throws it into the giant's mouth. Of course, as soon as the seed gets wet, it starts to grow. Although you figure the acid might have consumed it before, but yeah. And basically, this Bill Nye's character dies very brutally as this stalk comes growing out of every little pore. He's got 2 heads, by the way. Yeah, something out of like World of Warcraft there. And the one head, as it's like growing, the stalk, it explodes, and you see like the eyeball fly towards the screen. That was because before then it was very much like a very PG movie. Actually, was this rated PG? I think it was. I never showed the ratings on here. And it kind of caught me off guard because before then it's like, oh, somebody got stabbed. It's a complete cutaway. It's very Disney in that regards. And it's here we go. It is PG-13. They could have gone a lot more bloody with this movie then. Yeah, this was a PG-13 film that was actually trying to be a PG movie. I have a feeling that there was some misdirection there. Like, somebody wanted this to be PG. It was, I think, filmed and edited as a PG. And then they were like, no, we're going to make it a PG-13 because we want people to think it's mature. That's why I'm thinking this is so bad, actually. Because I actually was watching this thinking this was a PG movie. And PG-13. Yeah, you know what? For a PG-13, this is actually making it seem worse. I actually have a feeling they purposely upped. Like, the studio decided to go... Maybe they might have even included that scene just so they could get the PG-13 rating so they could try to get an older audience in there. And my vast... Hold me and update it very loudly in my ear. Hate it when that happens. So yeah, I guarantee you there was some of that because the rest of the movie feels like it's trying to be PG. So maybe Bryan Singer really was intending this to be for a PG film. But anyway, I digress. So there you go. It's of course very fairy tale-ish. Which is alright because it's a fairy tale movie. You're not expecting anything else from it, but it's very like, there's nothing overly impressive about it. They don't even call Jack the Giant Slayer at any point. Like, you figure there's like a scene where you're expecting, you go, well, Jack, you're quite the Giant Slayer now. They never... That's the title of the movie. And by the way, he only kills like 2 giants. And that's the only 2 giants that die. So, there. That's pretty much it. It's a movie. Do I recommend it? No. Yes. Here's how I recommend it. It's a mixed one because I did see a lot of families there. If you have kids, like, I could imagine seeing this when I was 8 or 9 and loving this movie. I think I would really enjoy it. So if you have kids and you're taking kids to the movies, yeah, this would be a good one. It's tolerable, and the kids will probably enjoy it much more than some of the other crap that's out there. So if that's the case, it's a recommend. If you're like really into Grimm's fairy tales, it might be worth taking a look just to kind of see. If you're not, then it's no. Like, I mean, it's hard to say because I haven't seen what else is out there other than Argo. Go see that. Go see Argo. That's the recommendation from this week. If this becomes a huge money loser, oh well. But here's the big thing that's got me worried with this movie because it was so underwhelming. It's Days of Future Past that's coming up. Bryan Singer's next movie. Because if this is what I have to expect from Bryan Singer, man, GTFO, Stay off the X-Men series. I don't know, man. Maybe you're kind of losing a little bit. Back in the day, you were kind of great. But you get me nervous because First Class was so good. And now you've kind of reasserted your control over the X-Men series, and it's like we've seen better now. So if this is what we have to look forward to, not that impressed. And apparently this was a pet project of his too, which is the other thing. Like normally you could maybe forgive somebody if it's just like, well, you know, he was just doing that as a gig. But no, apparently from what I heard, this was a pet project of his for a while. Like he wanted to make this movie. So that's got me a little concerned. Yeah, what else has he done recently? I'm trying to think. Alright, he did do Valkyrie. Did he direct Valkyrie, though? He did direct Valkyrie. Like, that was good. But, you know, looking back, even the first two X-Men now are meh, because we saw better, and yes, wishing that the First Class, like, he could stay on as a producer, but you're wishing the First Class crew, like, everyone, stuck on that film. Making me nervous there. I mean, yeah, you got Peter Dinklage in there, but let's see. Other than that, let's see trailers. I did see a new trailer, that movie Epic, which is kind of like a new Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. There was something really off about that trailer, and that was the music, because the music did so not fit the scenes they were showing. Like, they needed to redo that. Oh. 3D. I did see this movie in 3D. And it was so not worth it. I feel so ripped off seeing this in 3D because I did not. There were two shots I noticed the 3D in. Two. I saw more 3D in the G.I. Joe Retaliation trailer. At least that one looks like they're actually putting some effort into the 3D. I'm still not going to see it in 3D. The only reason I saw this in 3D was I did not feel like going to the later showing. Like, this was another thing. This was kind of weird. Maybe, I guess, the rumors that this is going to be a failure. I guess my theater, they really weren't showing that many showings of this, and they only had 2 non-3D showings, and I didn't want to sit around till 7 o'clock to go see the, I didn't feel like going out that late tonight. That's the only reason I saw it in 3D. In retrospect, I probably should have saved myself a couple bucks. Just confirms, occasionally I guess I have to remind myself that 3D sucks. So yeah, definitely don't see this movie in 3D. It's not worth it. Other than that, I think I should have some Counter Monkeys up for you. That will probably at least one of them will be going up with this review, because I recorded them yesterday and I just didn't bother putting them up on YouTube until today. So we've got that to look forward to next week. Let's see if there's anything coming out next week worth watching, because we're now in March. It is now March 1st. Okay, let's see here. March 8th, we've got coming out. Oh, Oz the Great and Powerful. That actually looks like a much better fantasy film. So you got Oz Great and Powerful, Dead Man Down, Don't Stop Believing, not a big majority of the Silence. This looks more like it's an indie film. Yeah, so definitely be checking out Oz the Great and Powerful. That's one I've been keeping my eye on. It looks fairly good. March 15th. The week after that is The Call. Hey, I'm not. No. Burt Wonderstone. Let's see. Ginger and Rosa. No. Not interested. From Up on Poppy Head. No. Upside Down. Meh. Maybe. Of course, the 22nd we have Olympus Has Fallen. I've got to see that because I have to compare it to White House Down later on. I've got to see it just for that. We've got to do a comparison at this point. So I will be seeing White House Down. Let's see what else is coming up this month. And then, of course, the 29th. I'm definitely got to see G.I. Joe Retaliation. I've got to see that. Hopefully, if anything, this is a shoot down the host. But I really want to see this. To give director Chu some credit, John Chu, because it feels, from what I've read, he got screwed over with that. I had the video where I just went on about that fucking delay, but apparently he did not have anything to do with that. He made the movie he wanted, and then the studio, completely without consulting him, decided to add some extra scenes. So I'm gonna go watch it. I'm gonna try to ignore the parts with Channing Tatum, and then I'm just gonna basically make fun of Channing Tatum the entire time, but say the rest of the film is good. I hope that's how it goes. We'll see how it actually happens. Maybe the rest is crap, or maybe they did something amazing and they actually made me like Channing Tatum. I don't know. It's possible. But gotta see that, and I am kind of looking forward to that. And I think that's pretty much it for that for the month of March. Then we go into a bit of a dry spell with April, and then of course we get back into the summer movies. Always popular. So that's what we have to look forward to. Maybe there'll be a couple other additional videos in there, but that's it. So thank you for watching, listening. Please subscribe. Please like. All that other good stuff. Spread the word, people. Signing on off.